Yet if you see early videos of Tony Robbins, it's pretty amateurish. I mean, it's
Mm.
obviously there's this kid and he's got talent, but he is by no means the Tony Robbins that he is
Of
today.
today. So we got another episode of the podcast here. I got David, who is a master copywriter, somebody who's pretty big deal in the entrepreneurship space. I think he's going to be a highly valuable guest. I told him about the whole community, kind of what we have to offer. Before we get into the meat of it and, talking about what you're currently doing, David, what can you kind of just give like your backstory, I guess, for people and sort of how you came into the field currently?
Yeah, I kind of fell into advertising because I was working at Ogilvy and Mather in New York City,
Nice.
and decided, hey, wait, I can do this writing thing.
Yeah.
And so I started because I came in, I was like in administration. I was basically
Right.
working in the typing center. Um, and so I worked at Ogilvy for a while writing, worked at other ad agencies. Then I discovered direct response, which is like actually selling stuff through copy, through the mail, online, as opposed to big agencies, which are more like branding and selling stuff indirectly, driving people to stores and things like that. So that's what I've been doing the past couple decades: is selling stuff online through the mail. Evolved into selling my own stuff. These days, I do a lot of coaching and working with clients to improve the quality of their and effectiveness of their copy, either by working with their copy, working with their writers directly, or helping edit their copy.
Nice. David, so about, I would say 80 to 90% of the people in our community, their predominant focus is sales or marketing in some sense,
Mhm.
some way or another. And a question that has come up kind of repeatedly on our podcast is sales a skill that can be taught, or is it something that's kind of a natural talent? So
Mhm.
to speak. You having been in the ad agency kind of world in the city and all that stuff for however many years, what are you kind of your thoughts on that? Obviously, you're doing course and sort of teaching it, but do you find that sales is more of a skill set that can be learned, or one that's kind of people have just inherent skill levels at as pertains to copy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both in a way. I mean, some people are obviously born salespeople, right? Someone like Tony Robbins probably just came out of the
Exudes
womb
it.
able
Yeah.
to, yeah, able to sell stuff. And yet, if you see early videos of Tony Robbins, it's pretty amateurish. I mean, it's
Mm.
obviously there's this kid and he's got talent, but he is by no means the Tony Robbins that he is
Of
today.
today.
And after studying NLP, studying sales techniques, practicing, in front of a mirror and recording and watching and constantly honing. So I think if someone is intelligent enough, right, and because intelligence is kind of pattern recognition and duplication, right? You
Yeah.
see, oh, I see what Zig Ziglar does. I see what Tony Robbins does. I see they do this, and then they set it up, and they build rapport like this, and then they bridge the sale like this, and they kind of force the sale like this. I see what they're doing. I can kind of duplicate what they're doing. If you're willing to practice, you're willing to make a fool of yourself, either in front of the mirror or the camera or in front of other people
Right.
enough time. I think it's definitely something. If you're willing to hear no enough times, until a lot of stuff, selling and a lot of other things are just being willing to be not good at it until you're good at it.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned like the Tony Robbins thing, where he was kind of like amateurish in the beginning. There was like a progression. What do you think
Hmm.
that you know obviously when we're talking about sales, like there's a difference between like written sales in terms of the copy, although like a lot of the same principles, right, apply to doing a sales call
Sure.
versus writing. But like, what is the, I guess, what is like the skill that's being trained there? Is it just the ability to understand other people? Is it following a specific formula of like the human needs and pain points, or how do you look at like sales and just like sales psychology as a whole?
Yeah. I hate to keep being so all inclusive, but it's
Sure.
all those things really, right? You have to understand people and how they operate. You have to have certain patterns, templates, things to go by, right? You have to know what the structure is of a sales call. You have to know what you want your pattern to be. But I think more than anything, it's a mindset. It's a mindset of, as John Carlton would say, this person has money in their pocket that belongs to me because I have something that's of higher value to them than the money in their pocket that can really do them some good. And it's my responsibility. I have failed them if I can't convince them to exchange that money for what I can give them. So I
Right.
think a lot of it is that it's not this just rotely learning things or rotely learning patterns, but it's a
Yeah.
in a sense it's a real genuine caring for that person and for their best interests.
So in that, I have a lot of people who are in different sort of niches and industries, right? Like maybe they had a
Mhm.
career in like the legal field, right? And now they're trying to sell some type of service into law firms or whatnot. So they understand kind of like the problems that the people that they're selling to or writing copy for, or, writing ads for
Mhm.
have. Do you think like for somebody who's like trying to learn an industry, do you think it's something that they can kind of study up on and from the outside looking in, kind of develop a idea of like the best copy or the best sales approach, or do they need to be like really have the experience in that field, talking to people to understand their problems and
Right.
desires enough to sell? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it's certainly an advantage to have been in that field, right? That's why a lot of the
Sure.
people that I train in copy are their business owners that are in that field, and they do really well because they understand the prospects and they understand the field, and they all they have to do is learn how to write persuasively, which is relatively easy if it's taught correctly. Um, but I think for people who are outside the field, sure, you can learn that, but you have to know how to study it, right? You have to know who to talk to. You want to talk to the best salespeople at that
Sure.
company. You want to talk to the prospective customers, and you want to ask them questions that are, you know, intelligent questions that are probing, that aren't just yes or no, but are like, you know, what's the, I forget, there's this book that I just read and I can't remember the name of it. Um, but it says, you can't just ask people, would you buy this? Right? That you have to really ask, okay, walk me through the last time you made a purchase like this, right?
Right.
What did you do? What were your thoughts? What were your considerations? Um, you have to also really, you have to really probe, right? You have to be
Hmm.
willing to almost piss people off to get to the root of what they really want or what their real
That's
dreams
interesting.
are or what their real fears are,
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's true of the people if you're interviewing someone or you're interviewing someone that knows these people. You got to get past the superficial answers, right? What really keeps them up at night? What do they really want? Because people don't want money. It's just a pile of green stuff. It's just numbers on a spreadsheet, right? They want they want to prove to their sixth grade teacher who always said they'd never amount to anything that they have amounted to something, right? That's what they want. So you've got to understand them on that level. If you're writing to doctors, for instance, right? What do they want? Right? They don't just want money, they want recognition. They
There's
want
a
a sane
deeper,
life.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of deep stuff going
yeah,
around that and that's what good copy is. That's what good marketing is comes
yeah,
from there.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you say that. So many people. That's when I'm working with people on this entrepreneurial basis, getting to
Mhm.
that kind of root, like that underlying sort of desire or the thing that the prospect is facing. It's challenging. It's really challenging for a lot of people to find that. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So do you? I mean, through your career or work or even what you're doing now, like, do you have a heuristic or some type of way of thinking about finding that customer need and like getting you know upsetting them a little bit, I guess, to find that out?
Yeah, I mean, you have to upset them a little bit. I think mainly you have to set them with just nagging them enough times, like, is, you know, the same question over and over again in a certain way. And sometimes that's solved by just like if you like, don't just interview someone for a half hour on the phone, right? Don't just either interview someone for a half hour even at their office, but take them to dinner, take them to lunch, hang out with them, right? Hang out with prospects. Go to where they live, go to where they work, go to
Be
where
around
they
them.
congregate. Yeah. See how they talk to each other even. And sometimes you have to do that obviously by hanging out in forums or,
Yeah.
today there's other ways to eavesdrop on people.
So with that
Um,
being said, in terms of the like being around the people in the niche or in the where you're trying to write copy or sell, what how do you sort of teach in your current coaching and stuff that you do? Like, how do you teach just copywriting in general to people? What's the
I try to
approach?
get them in touch with what I call their inner persuader,
Okay.
right? Like, if a lot of people, they sit down to write and they're like, oh, how do I write a headline and an opening? Oh, like a, pattern interrupt or something, right? But if you're trying to convince your spouse or a partner or your friend to go eat Chinese food when they want to eat Mexican food, right? You're not thinking about like, oh, should I start with a story or should I open with a startling fact? You just say, hey, there's you know how to persuade them, right? You say, hey, I know you love this kind of food. This restaurant just opened. I'll be in your debt if we go out for Mexico. Like, all the ways to do that. And it's the same thing with copy. So many people say things in copy they'd never say to someone in person.
Right.
So the first thing you got to get people to do is just, talk to me like you would talk to someone in a bar that was interested in what you have to sell, right? How do you
Mm.
keep my attention on it, right? What would you say? Don't write copy, just like pitch me on this, right? It's kind of getting them to just pitch you on it. Um, and then, that's not that rote automatic pablum that a lot of people write when they write copy that sounds like everything else. That's genuinely sincere. This is different because I think a lot of people haven't really thought copy through before they sit down and write it. So I think that's kind of the first thing is copy thinking, not just copywriting, right? Like, what is unique about your damn product? Why should someone buy it? Like, really, what are the benefits? List them out.
In some of the clients that you work with, are there barriers that you have to overcome to getting them to come up with those, core reasons, or like what are the barriers for the copywriter that they commonly give you for reasons why they
Well,
can't come up with it?
I don't know if they give me reasons so much
Sure.
as um, they keep trying to write copy, right? Like if I say, okay, pitch me on this, they'll kind of start out by going, well, there are four ingredients in this product that make it, whatever. I'll say, stop. You wouldn't like do that to someone in a bar. You would tell them, you'd start out by telling them how wonderful it is, not that it has four ingredients and sounding like a textbook. But I think people don't do it, especially people who own businesses, right? And are writing for themselves, don't do it because they're busy, and they don't do it because they're kind of like get stuff done people, or they wouldn't have started a business. So they're busy getting stuff done and they want to just get the copy done. They don't really want to take the time to really think it through, right?
Mm.
And really talk it out loud and really take the time with it. But that's what copy really takes in a way till it becomes second nature.
Yeah. Do you follow any of the kind of copywriting, the other copywriting courses and influencers and kind of like there's sort of a space around it online? Do
Right.
you like follow any of that or like have
Yeah.
commentary on that like on Twitter or whatnot?
Yeah, sure. Some of it's really good, Um, I think you just have to be careful to not slavishly follow formulas, right?
Right.
Like there's some really good formulas out there, But then you see all the copy starts to be the same formula, and people start to recognize it, like, okay, I kind of know what's coming, subconsciously or otherwise. And also
What do you mean by
people
that? What
forget.
just to elaborate on that one point a little bit, because I think that's
Well, kind of like, okay, here's the part where they tell me how they struggled to invent this thing, and
okay.
here's the part where they tell me that what I
That's the
think I know
formula
is
piece.
wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And again, not out loud, but they sort of, maybe sometimes out loud, but
Okay.
they sort of know, like, oh, okay, here's the part where they tell me they were gonna price it at 500, and now they're gonna price it at 100 because I guess they love me so much. Um, and here's the part where they tell me it's not my fault, right? Um, but I think basically, the basic formula is always problem solution, right? Otherwise, what do you have to sell if you're not solving someone's problem? And, I think in a way, you're always kind of, if you look at a lot of really good copywriting, it's kind of, there's a problem, and I'm going to help you think about it in a new way. And by thinking about it in this new way, you could see that what you've been doing, you can see why what you've been doing hasn't worked. And you kind of need to think about it in this way. And this is what's going to work. And my product will get you to where you want to go even faster. Right? It's like, here's why you're not losing weight, because it's your hormones that are making you not lose weight. It's not that you have no willpower. So what you need to do is to kind of regulate your hormones. You need to, eat in a certain way. You need to be not stressed out, right? You need to get you know, you need to take this herb and this herb, right? But look, we have this wonderful pill that we've come out with that has all these great herbs in there that regulate your hormones for you, right? And that's kind of the way to kind of sell things in copy, whatever it is, right? You have a company, you have problems using AI, you've had this, that's because you're not thinking about it in the right way, and that's because you need to do these things. But we have a course that you can buy that will enable you to learn AI in the right way. And so just give us money and we'll give you the course and your problems will be solved.
Nice. Nice. What's your opinion on AI and copy?
Yeah, I think it's a really useful tool. I think just like with templates, right? There's an over reliance on it. So a lot of people can't really tell that it's really not very good copy, and they don't have the skills to edit it to being really good copy. So their copy just kind of, because if they're using AI copy, it winds up being more and more mediocre. And in a way, AI is becoming more and more mediocre because it's kind of feeding on itself, right? The copy that it reads is AI generated copy to a large extent now. And so it starts to have this sameness to it. You know how, like, when you look at a stock photo,
You can
you can
tell.
kind
Yeah.
of tell it's a stock photo, right? They're gathered around the boardroom and they're, looking a certain way or whatever. The family is perfect. It's the same thing with AI copy. You can kind of tell or feel it.
Yeah.
And you can't just cut and paste it. Um, you've really got to let it go through you, right? You've got to rewrite it. Sometimes it's just a way of getting ideas. It's a way of getting different ways of thinking about something. Sometimes I'll just use it for a first draft, and I might throw away the first draft that it makes, but it gave me some good, I like, oh, that was a different way of thinking about it. Oh, that's a cute little phrase that it came up with, right? There's little nuggets in there.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, so I guess shifting gears a little bit, with in terms of
Okay.
your own personal company, like what are the types of like clients that you work with, and do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think people would
Mm-hmm.
find it interesting to hear, like, kind of privately, like what types of clients you work with, and sort of how do you work with them as like a copywriting consultant or direct response writer, etc.
Yeah. I work
You've been
with,
doing it a
well,
while
first,
as well.
yeah, I was doing it a while. Work with a lot of different companies, right? From Procter and Gamble to, startups. Um, a lot of what I do is kind of helping them with their own copywriting or helping train their copywriters. Um, and sometimes it's joint venturing with people. Like, they've got a product, I may do the writing or help them with the writing and have a share of it. Um, and like I said, a lot of the people I work with are kind of people who own companies and want to do their own copy,
Sure.
which I think is kind of smart because hiring copywriters, especially today, can be kind of uncertain and frustrating. Um, you don't quite know what you're getting sometimes,
Right.
um, and unless you've got a really good referral. And also, business owners, if they can write their own copy, they'll be much better at hiring and supervising copywriters in the future.
Yeah. In terms of that business, like what's been the biggest challenge for you personally?
Well, that's an interesting question. Um, I guess just shifting people out of their mindset, getting people away from writing and getting them into just persuading and thinking and not caring so much about the words,
Hmm.
but caring more about what's behind the words, right? Like,
Gotcha.
you could have this great salesman and he could just be really not very articulate, but, you know, you just like him and he's got great things to say, right? You could have a salesman that's the most articulate person in the world and you'd never buy from him because you don't trust him and he just doesn't know how to talk to you in a way that you understand and in a way that resonates with you.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about like what are you working on now? What are some of the things that you're trying to achieve or objectives? What does the future look like for you right now?
Well, I've got a couple things. My business sort of divides up into consulting, right? That's like a third of it, where I work with clients, talk to them a couple times a month, and go over copy, go over marketing, revise copy, come up with tests. And then maybe a third of it is kind of joint ventures with people, doing some stuff in the fitness space right now, um, and building some copy courses with people. And then I've got my own products. I've got a copywriting course. I've got a course on creativity, coming up with ideas. And I've got a kind of a membership, group coaching, really, where every twice a month, look at members' copy with them on a call, go over it, improve it. Bunch of we do a monthly bonus where we interview, or there's a some kind of a training that's distributed. But that's been a lot of fun because it's nice to go have a whole group of people that you're kind of working with, and there's also a group dynamic there too, where you've got, instead of me looking at the copy, it's me with a whole bunch of other people looking at the copy. And there's always someone that was like,
Okay, gotcha.
I was that buyer, for a while, or I am that buyer, or I used to sell in that market.
Yeah, interesting. What in this whole kind of journey of creating, pursuing the copywriting and working with different companies and learning, what's like the biggest takeaway for you, not necessarily tied to copywriting but just as a whole, that you think like other entrepreneurs who are getting into copywriting on their own could be potentially useful to them?
I think the thing that I keep coming back to is just test more stuff, test it
Test
more
more stuff.
quickly,
Yeah.
and that includes showing your copy to other people, which is kind of a test, you know. People see things in it that you don't. It's hard to read the label from inside the jar. Um, and don't just go with one idea, right? Always do A/B, right? Always have an A/B test going on.
Uh, Does
And
that
then it's
always have a backup or just to iterate on it, I guess?
yeah, just to iterate on it, or if if you're going to do a sales page, do two versions of it, right? Let the best copy win,
Right.
right? That way you're kind of doing what nature does, right? Look what nature
Natural
evolved
selection.
out of, yeah, little one-celled amoebas. It evolved us because it just kept doing A/B tests. Oh, this mutation works. This mutation doesn't work. Oh, this mutation works. Now this mutation works. and this one doesn't. Okay,
Right.
ones that don't, we just let them die off, right?
Right.
The dodo or all those things. But the ones that do evolved into, human beings. And the same thing with copy, right? Why not have copy evolve into great copy by that same process?
Interesting. Cool. David, where can people find you, and what's the best if they're interested in help? What's the best way for them to work with you?
Yeah, they can just go to my site, which is speakingofwriting.com.
Okay.
Speakingofwriting.com. And there's a couple of free reports that they can get. They can sign up for my newsletter when they get the reports. There's a products page, which has got, a listing of the different, the creativity course, the copywriting course, and the group coaching thing. And if they go to the creativity course now, it'll take them to the test that I've
Mm,
been talking about. So
super
they'll
interesting.
be able to, um, or that you and I maybe talked about beforehand,
Yes.
which was that they can take a test to see how good their idea is. Basically, it's called the Big Idea Evaluator. So it's kind of a cool way to evaluate an idea, but also to learn about creativity, and it's free, so you should try it out.
Cool. And yeah, and we'll link all that stuff in the show notes. David, thank you for coming on. This is the guys. Any comments? I would get customer interviews, write them, and log it in the Notion. And everybody should do that, and like record it, and you can refer it back to in the future, and like try to draw some conclusions and like take notes on it. Cool. In any case, I'm just going to pull up the members chart